I'm imagining that we're gonna have a lot of like minor leaguers watch this and so forth. Like, if you had the chance to talk to a group of minor leaguers, like if you did have that opportunity, like what would be your message today? What would you tell those guys?
Wake the fuck up. Let's go. I don't care what the you're spinning the ball at, right? Just throw the ball over the plate.
That's a good, that actually is like very good advice. Yeah, like I feel like too, because that like generation of people is probably so computer data. Like every bullpen you throw now has a TrackMan. That actually probably is like, that. Just go like compete. That is probably a huge message.
You threw Friday. A couple of days ago.
Did I?
Yeah.
Friday?
Yeah. Pretty.
Not yesterday.
You win this?
Friday. I threw Friday. I threw Friday.
This is your first time in AZ for
sweet. So much better.
Is it better in Florida?
It's way better than Florida. Yeah. It just depends, I guess, what you like, but I guess like the travel, everything's close enough. So that's way better. You're not gone all day long.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Tyler knows my family, but he knows my family really well. Probably better than
really well.
Yeah, you know
sure.
them really well. And so Eliana was doing a promotion for her Disney TV show, Pretty Freaking Scary. And she threw out the first pitch at Tropicana Field. I forgot who we were playing, but this was a really cool moment for the whole family. We're getting interviewed, and wow, you're so proud of your daughter. And then the moment comes, I go and I asked her, I said, sweetheart, so who do you want to catch your first pitch? And I'm like, this is going to be an amazing father-daughter moment. Without hesitation, she's like, Tyler Glasnow. I'm like, wait, what? She's like, he's my favorite player, and I want Tyler to catch him. I'm like, well, I would too. I had a good point. And then I started thinking too, I asked Haas, hey, have you ever faced Tyler? Do you remember facing him when we were the Pirates?
Yeah, when you were with who were you with that time? San Diego, maybe?
It was San Diego.
I faced you a few times, I'm pretty sure.
It was San Diego because this was like the older, bitter days.
There you go. Yeah.
So we come in and it's like the 7th, 8th inning, and we're up or down by like 8 or 9. And this is at a point in time in the game, which, I'm sorry, you know this all too well. So
I was that role a few times.
It's not really 8 or 9
I should be mopping it up.
You're supposed to be facing a mop-up guy. You're supposed to be facing the worst guy in their bullpen at that point in time. So I go up there off you, and this guy's just 99 all over my chest. And I get back to the dugout, and I was just like, why the f did I just hit right there? Like, who was supposed to take that at bat for me? But we've always been fans from afar, and everything that goes into your routine, like it's so much more than just the normal pitcher. Like, I'm not old, but like the guys did towels and then the bands and all that. But you are a big dude, you're flexible, and I know you're super aware of your body awareness and all that. So how have you taken that to the next level with everything that goes into pitching?
I think, a lot of it's like trial and error, and you always get like shown the generic stuff as you come up, and like as you get shown certain things, you would incorporate it into your routine, and then you work with like a different strength coach or someone in the athletic training room. And I think the way we all know baseball works, like you got different staff every single year, and then in the off season you go train somewhere else. So I think it's like, I've always been like thirsty, I guess, sounds kind of weird, but like for different information, and like it's always been really hard for me to throw strikes. So anytime I would get like a cool exercise or something that I could feel like grounded and planted in, I would like throw it into my routine. So I think it's just like a trial and error, bunch of new coaches. It's like a smorgasbord of information that I'll just like put into like a smaller list of things, and it's like an ever evolving type of thing. And I think some people are like proprioceptive, some people don't think about their body. Like I kind of have to, like I'm so feel based that everything I do has to be like, it feels right or it feels wrong. And it's frustrating to certain people, but for me, I'm like, that's what I have to do. So like, yeah.
So as a field guy, how much has analytics helped you, and how do you make the correlation, I guess, between being so feely and using the data as well?
I think you can incorporate like feeling to analytics is like not one in the, like they're definitely not the same, but they're similar in a sense that like what I'm feeling, I can get live data on that feeling, as opposed to like, there'd be times where a coach would be like, all right, do this, put your weight here or something, and I'll do it. And he's like, great. And I'm like, I didn't feel that good. But if he's like, great, and then he shows me like, look how much better this is, it's kind of like a step in me to be like, all right, I think I'm onto something here. I can play around with it a little bit more. So like, I like to intertwine both of them. I'm not really like super leaned in 100% on analytics, but like I definitely use, especially the TrackMan and stuff like that, and like force plates and like certain things like that, like moving efficiently. if they can get me in point me into a right direction, I'll lean into them for sure.
Even if the initial is uncomfortable, you'll still
sort of.
push
So
through?
like, I guess a good example is like this spring, in like the smallest, not to get like too deep into it, I guess. But
Please
like,
do.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
yeah.
I always have been a guy, like I'm tall, most tall guys, maybe you've dealt with it too. Like your first move is like forward and you don't want it to be forward. It's like, I would lift my leg and just fall down the mound. And so the way I would combat it was like, I'd almost use like my heel, like the back of my heel to balance. But like technically that's not a very efficient way to balance, but it was always something I was like, feels good to me. Like I can get it going. And then I think as like working with the Dodgers right now, the strength coaches, like we want like just dominate like your toe, stay balanced on your toe. And initially I was like, I've tried that, I don't really like it. But it's like working with them and it's like, okay, being on your toe and then using your hips linearly to get into the spot that you want to be. It was like trying to find the thing I liked while incorporating that. And I started to like understand it more, and then like my stability felt even better than it had before. But
it's so important to have to know that on your own, because as a hitter, I've always relied on other eyes being on me. And now going into another organization, which I know you went Pittsburgh to Tampa, now going Tampa to LA, you kind of established your routine, your inner circle with Tampa. Now going to LA, it's like, if you don't know that and you're relying on another set of eyes, you don't have that with you right now. You got to teach these eyes what it is.
Yeah.
When I'm hearing you talk about it, that's so smart, because for a young guy, it's nice to go to that hitting coach or that pitching coach and hear what he says and he cleans you up and fixes it up and all that. But at the end of the day, if you're not truly comprehending what's going on, you're not making really that big of a stride, you know?
Exactly, yeah. So it's like, I can't like blindly follow someone. But I think too, and like in baseball, you never know where you're going to be, especially in the minor leagues. And I was with Pittsburgh when I sucked there, and then I went with the Rays, and they don't traditionally keep guys for a long time. So every year it's like, I got to figure this out on my own, because I could get traded next year. And like, I think it's like a very normal baseball thing. Like, I don't know if I want to put my trust into you, and like, I might never see you again. Like,
and another dangerous thing, like you said, with young guys, and I've fallen into a trap like this before, because there's a new mechanic thing in hitting that everyone wants to catch wave to. But what so many people battle is, okay, this is what I do, I'm gonna do this to combat that. So like you said, being on your heel. So if someone sees a video of Glass on his heel, it's like, oh, I gotta get on my heel, I gotta do this. And it's like, no. This is my battle. This is what I gotta do to compensate. So that's a really confusing space as well, because it's like, all right, I'm not telling you to do this, I'm telling you, for me, this is what gets me back to that happy medium. And pitching and hitting is a whole different level of grind, feel, mechanics, and all that stuff.
You mentioned earlier the generic thing. On the way up, that's what everybody has, these sort of cues, and I was taught completely different, like drop the head, hit the giant on the chin, like all the sort of throwing mechanics that now have been proven to be not very good for you. What is it that you've taken that has really set you to where you are right now? You said you sucked in Pittsburgh. You definitely don't suck now.
It's better now.
It's impressive to what you should do what you do. You're an excellent at your craft, and it's for me as a former pitcher, I love watching you pitch. So what is it that you're able to take and really just set you on this path you're on right now?
The biggest change was from Pittsburgh to the Rays. Like when I got traded, Pittsburgh, I was always like it was very like 0-0 set up on the corners. Like try to get strike one, like arm side heater or whatever. And I would like I'd try to throw an arm side heater, and I would throw like 100 at the top of the zone and be like, damn it. Like I'd be like angry. And then I would go to Tampa, and they were like, just do that. Like just be like middle. Just your stuff is really good. If you're trying to aim down the middle, you're probably not going to throw it down the middle. Just outstuff guys. And I think once I got the confidence to know like, oh, I can throw strikes, then all of a sudden like the confidence mixed with that approach, I just was able to like work up and down as opposed to like left and right, because the initial thing was like, this is how pitchers pitch, like sinkers, sliders, do this and that. And then I finally went to the Rays, which is, it's a little bit more like tailored to you. And like they have a good foundation of like what makes a guy good. They were like down the middle. And then that from there, like honestly, from game one to then, it was like, I was a completely different pitcher.
Dude, I feel like the Rays take that a step further in that comfort, and like even off the field, they let you be yourself. And
that
like,
was huge.
Yeah, there's so many guys that like, you think stuff has to be done a certain way in this organization, and then you get outside of that and you can be yourself, and you can do some certain things that you thought were frowned upon back in the day, and it's not.
Exactly.
So that's got to let you just free up mentally as well, just to be yourself. And I know catching up with this guy as of late, having him in Tampa had to be, and you even just having a dialogue with Glass from early Glass to now veteran Glass, or whatever we're going to call him, but like you have to see that growth as well.
Yeah, it's been really cool. So It's cool hearing you and just and connecting with you. We were talking about Spencer Strider yesterday and his body awareness. Yeah. And as we were talking about him, I'm like, Glass is the exact same way. Like Glass is in the same way. And I think sometimes people are like, whoa, Glass likes to talk about all that. But what is interesting to me as kind of as from the outside is not only is he really aware of speak to you like you're here. Not only are you really aware of your body, but also like he's really like self-awareness as well. Like that's a topic like we just talk about just thoughts and confidence. And so there have been a lot of times where there would be a young player who's nervous or scared or lacks confidence, and for them to hear Glass say, oh yeah, I get nervous too, or I lack confidence too, and I felt this way too, it's amazing to see the young guys go, oh, you experienced that too? And you're not only do you experience it, it seems like you're not afraid to talk about it.
For sure, yeah. I don't think I've ever been like afraid of looking stupid, so it's always been like fine for me. I think the first time
when you look like that.
I think the first time I heard like a big leaguer talk about like, yeah, I'm nervous like every start, and I was like, what the I was like, what? I'm not the only one? I thought it was just such a weird feeling of being like, no, I'm the only one who has these like crazy, just like not confident going into a game things. And then I think realizing how much that helped me, I was like, any chance I get, I can just like tell a minor leaguer like, no, dude, it's not like, sometimes it's like, it's tough for everyone. And every single veteran player I've ever played with, I always ask like, do you get nervous? And not a single one has said no. Everyone's like, yeah, every start I get nervous. So it's like, and just all the little things I used to struggle with, I was like, oh, I guess they're never gonna go away. I might as well like just embrace what's going on right now.
How cool is it too now, later on in your career, being in a place like LA and seeing all the star power you guys have in there and just see how everyone deals with that type of stuff, because when you play against a guy, it's one thing, you see him on the outside, you compete against him, but then to be a locker room, bus rides and all that type of stuff, which I know you eventually will learn these guys more, but that's got to be something cool to be like, dude, I'm with the Dodgers right now, and we're, we got a show. We got Tani. This is a full-on show squad.
Yeah.
So that's just got to be a whole nother uplifting of confidence as well. And like, I'm fired up. You got to be so fired up for that.
I'm super excited, and just being from there, like going back home, and then just like seeing the differences in. It's just so buttoned up too. Like they have like the resources to have everything that you need to become like a better baseball player. And I think too, like they have a really good eye for like getting good teammates as well. Like I think that's a huge thing that they take into account. Like they have to be good for the clubhouse. Like, and I think too, for an outside perspective, maybe in like a generic like big market team, you'd assume there'd be like some ego-y dudes, but everyone in that clubhouse is so solid, and I think that's like what's going to make the Dodgers so special. Everyone's just super humble, and it's baseball. It's tougher to be a dude in baseball because you like will suck more frequently than most sports, but it's such an awesome vibe in that clubhouse.
And that's the stuff we talk about that's like unmeasured, right? The unmeasurable stuff and like that team chemistry and that stuff. Yeah. So everybody talking about the Tampa Bay Rays, like it's like, all right, they maximize whatever they have. They maximize everything out of that team and all that type of stuff.
On a budget.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and now it's like,
blank check.
LA is that and everything more. Yeah. So it's gonna be insane to see this whole thing watch in full circle. It's gonna be amazing, but.
One of the things that we've had a lot, we always talk, so we go to the clubhouse, I'll get done with I always show up really early, get my workout in before the players start coming, and then Glass, like, well, we're getting ready for the game, we're like, do you have any good dugout chatter? Like, we're always talking about
ball talk.
This time ball talk. It's just like, what's the conversation going to be in the dugout? There was one day in particular where it kind of took me back, where, so we're sitting there, I forgot we were playing, we're at home, and Glasnow looks at me, he goes, what do I suck at? And I was just like, oh, he's like, you've seen me, watch me, and to have a major league baseball player who's doing really well say, okay, what do I suck at? And I think a lot of times you don't want to face the music. Yet I don't know if what I said. I think I said the typical, what do you think you suck at? I don't think I really answered anything, but has that always been something for you that you've always looked for? How can I get better? How can I grow? How can I improve? Has that always been part of your?
Yeah, I think it's like a double, like I think I'm like a very negative person. Not in like but I think like initially I'm always like, I'm gonna be like a pessimist. If like someone tells me something, I'm gonna be like, how can I prove this wrong kind of thing. So I think, like I've always been like that, I guess, since I'm a little kid. It's like a little bit of like perfectionism, if that's a word. It's like a perfectionist.
Sounds great.
T-shirt. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Perfectionism.
I think I'll always just try to like find the things I could get better. I guess too, there's no point in me being like, what am I good at? Like, really, I don't need you to fluff me. I think, and like you were like extremely honest. And I think sometimes in baseball, the position that you're at, like it's hard to trust the person. It's hard to like, it's just a bunch of different shit. And I think I've known you for so long to where it's like, I know you'll actually give me like a real answer.
Yeah.
And like, it's hard to get like good advice from people all the time. You get like honest advice from like your family when you get broken up with and when you get fired and like, oh, you know what I mean? Like that's right. Steve Shumway used to say it. Yeah. But like, I just.
Is this like this is like the next wave of training, right? Like physical stuff and now the mental side of it, to be able to have a dialogue and just a conversation that's continually flowing. Like that's gotta be so helpful for these dudes. Like even if it's a family member, coach or somebody, but I feel like that's the new wave we're on now, especially these young cats.
Yeah.
Like mentally, you gotta, find someone you can talk about things and create a dialogue and go from there.
Yeah, for sure. That's why it was special having him too. Like it wasn't like I feel like you never had to like report back to anyone. It was always like you could just do your own. You were like autonomous. It's just like whatever you needed, people would come up and talk to you, and it wasn't like report back or anything. And
And I think that was kudos to the race. I think Eric, Neander, obviously, and Kashi, they're just like, hey, just go do it. Like just like whatever. And no, I think that's really cool.
You were saying that was part what makes your role so special is that you don't report to anybody, but you need that. Trust is such a massive thing. You talked about it. They don't have your trust, then your job is useless.
Yeah, it's so true. And players, I think you were saying this as well. When you're around somebody every single day for as long as we are, players can sniff. You can just sniff people out. You sniff out intentions. You sniff out all of that. But that's a really good point. And something I was going to ask you about. We were at dinner a couple nights ago, and we got into a little conversation that I really want to hear. So I'm at one end of the table, and I hear these two kind of going at it a little bit. I'm like, oh, I can't wait to hear what Glass has to say about this. He starts talking about, I'll let you guys go. They start talking, having this little debate about sticky stuff.
Okay.
And they're going back and forth, and I was like, okay, we got to bring this up with Glass.
I told my personal story of my differences that I found with the baseballs. I pitched from 2006 to 2018. And there was a stretch where there was a noticeable difference in the surface of the baseball. And when I always pitched, all I needed was literally sweat and rosin. And I come to LA for spring training and I'm like, I can't spin these balls. Like, what is happening? I'm thinking maybe it's Arizona, whatever it is. And somebody says to me, hey, why don't you try a little sunscreen and some rosin on your arm? That got me back to where I was as a pitcher before they changed the baseballs. I listened to your story and I saw you talk about the extra pressure that you need to put on, no matter what it was that you used, even if it was just rosin and sweat, you still had to put more pressure on when they were saying no stickiness at all can be found on your hands. You're putting so much extra pressure on your elbow when you're squeezing like you are, at max effort when you're trying to release the baseball, that had to make a big impact on your elbow. And I just want to know from your perspective, what was that massive change like for you mid-season during that year?
Yeah, I think that was the issue for me was like, it was kind of unique to myself because I was already dealing with like, this thing was like hanging on by a thread. I would wake up after a start and just be like, what? Something is so entirely wrong with my arm. And I was just working with Kyle, and I think that, like, for me especially, if I could hold the ball lighter, any way to hold the ball lighter, it would take a lot of heat off of this. Like, something had to be done to be policed because it was getting like ridiculous.
It was mental.
People were using like
you could see them like going to their gloves and like it was just it was ridiculous.
All right, let me chime in here, at least on both sides. There is no doubt in my mind, dude. I understand the sunscreen, the rosin. You need some kind of grip. You know what I mean? I've gotten that cutoff throw in Colorado where I've turned a throw home and the ball just sails, and I'm like, what the f*** was that? My thing was you had certain guys that I've been facing for 4 or 5 years in the big leagues. All of a sudden, year 6, they're a completely different player. Pitcher, completely different guy. It took a little bit of the finesse out of pitching, especially with relievers, not so much starters, to be able to have a guy come and grip this stuff and then just rip sliders nonstop. To me, that was where it's like, all right, I get you have to have some kind of grip, but at the same time, I can't have you getting 800 to 900 more RPMs of spin or something like that. The injury stuff that you said, I think is a great point, and that really does make sense as far as how you're gripping the ball and using something to grip the ball. But at the same time, if you're using something that's going to give you 900 miles per hour of whatever
I agree with you on that
RPMs,
for sure. Right.
I mean, I'm used to one better looking guy in the room, but two now, and now two pictures ganging up on me. I'm like, hold on, let me get in here and talk about this for a second.
There you go. I think, there's a difference. Like, I think with anything, it's like you got to meet in the middle somewhere. Like, I think if you see a guy from one year and then the next year, like, oh, that's great, you're throwing 600 RPMs more than before, it was getting out of hand. And I think people were like abusing it, and like, there was all that new like spider tack stuff. And I don't think that was ever the case until, I don't know what changed. I think a lot of it too, what you said is like, when you go from one year to the next, from 15 to 16, I heard like the big difference too, even talking to hitters on the Pirates. Like, when you don't have any say in decisions being made in baseball and like your career, like you figure out a way to do something, and then the next year you have a completely different ball and you're like, what is this? They're like, nothing, it's the same. You're like, no, it's not. They're like, yes, it is. You're just like, okay. So I think people were like, well, I have to do something to get it back to what it was. For the most part, the entirety of baseball, people were just trying to find a grip. Like, they've been using stuff since like Shoeless Joe Jack, like whatever, you know what I mean? Like, people are like, you just have to get a grip. It's not a big, but I think that jump, people are just abusing it, like getting out of hand, and it needed to be done. Like, someone had to do something.
And what I'm so fired up about, and baseball is in such a good space, because if that was 5-10 years ago, you would have just went, not said a word, got on the bus the next day, and just figured out a way to how to deal with it. But now we're at a point in time where these guys are comfortable enough to express what's going on, and we can collaborate with these guys in the office or whoever it is with baseball to be like, listen, there's something different. We need to change this. And it's been proven. Like, they're like, yeah, the balls are different. Okay, how do we work together to make this better? So I just love seeing the game grow, because guys like you are willing to go out there and say that type of stuff. And you might get negative stuff in the media. Oh, dude, because I'm not gonna lie, I'm the first person to be like, you're gonna tell me I can't throw a baseball without this, and I'm actually hurting myself. But the more you dig deep into what you're saying, it's like, holy shit, he's got a point. And that is special, because that's opening up everything else.
Where's it at now? Like, what do you guys, what can you guys do now? There's two different rosin beds behind
the rosin's way better now.
Is it?
The rosin's completely different. They have like a rock rosin one. I don't know who does it now, but they're complete. It used to be like super dusty and powdery. Now it's like way better. So the sweat and rosin is a lot better. I know they were trying to come up with like a pre-stick.
I think they use that in Korea.
Yeah, they're trying to develop it, but I think the issue is like they used it in AA, and they're like, we already have way too many people striking out, like, and then you give them a little bit more, and it's like, now the skyrocket, like the rates are even higher. And then also,
we definitely don't want that.
Yeah, exactly. I think like I get it, like for the overall like idea of baseball, like you don't want everyone like striking out. It's not good for the game. And I think another problem is like if you do a pre-tack baseball, like what's stopping someone from like putting something, like, you know what I mean? So I think they're just like, strikeouts are already super high. Like, what do you want us to do? Like, I think it's the rosin has helped. So I don't really know what it's at, but I think the ball, like how it is now, is like probably going to be how it is for a long time.
Japan, don't they get each ball in Japan comes in like a foil wrap?
It's like
that's
like a sticky substance on it, and So I know they were trying to figure it out, but I don't know. They said it was like really hard, and I don't know. The rosin's been a lot more helpful too, though.
But it is cool that we're finally at a place where everyone's trying to grow the game and trying to just have what's best for the game. It's not like a hiding thing or whatnot. The players, the league, everyone wants to get it right. Kudos to somebody like you being able to say something like that, because dude, it's hard sometimes, man. When you say something and you put yourself out there, you know you're gonna get a negative response from a certain amount of people. So to be willing to take on something like that is strong, man. And that's type of the stuff, some of the stuff we're talking about, like going from Pittsburgh to Tampa, like you just feel more comfortable as a player, you feel more comfortable as a person, and you just grow.
For sure, I think we talked about it before too. I don't remember, I was in the dugout and I was like, do I want to say something?
Yeah, I remember that.
He told us a story about you guys walking off against one of the teams, and I'm sorry if I'm giving too much information, but you guys have been in like a deep dive for like 3 innings, and someone just hit a walk-off. You're like, should we go?
Yeah, I was like, let's go. We got 162 is a long season. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not locked in on every pitch. That'd be like if they'll pan to us on TV for like there's dudes like rookies that come up, and like I feel kind of bad. They're like probably like waiting to talk to Sue, and I'm just 9 innings like chapping his ear off. It's so bad. Like,
oh man, we had some of those good conversations, and some of the things that we talk about, even like it's nothing about like mental skills. It's like podcasts and things that we're listening. We're talking about just general things, and so a lot of times people don't realize that athletes in particular, they do so many things, and they like to talk about things outside of baseball. And we're talking about like from religion to just to the things that we see on different podcasts and different books that we're reading. And so I think it's something that a lot of people might be wondering as well. Outside of baseball, what do you enjoy doing?
I'm pretty like buttoned up in season. I don't really like go out a lot. I don't like pretty like health forward, I guess, in season. Like I'm pretty like a stickler on all that. In the off season, it's a little bit different. I love to travel a lot. Like that's my favorite thing in the world to do. I love books and podcasts mostly, or like audiobooks and stuff, because I'm kind of reading is tough. I just forget everything I read. But traveling is like and like going to dinners and hanging out with friends, like pretty generic type of stuff.
The 5-day routine for a pitcher, right? So I want to hear about yours, and I have more questions about like the body stuff, because like when you look at people, especially big guys, you see guys throw and you're like, God, there's more in there. Like if this dude just got everything out of what he had, he would be throwing so much harder. But then like guys like you get that out of your body. Like what is that? So like, I want to know about your routine and how did you get to be able to maximize that stuff? Is it flexibility? Is it like, what was the big change in that?
I think like ever since I was a kid, I was just like, my mentality was always like, throw it really hard. Like that, I just was always like, I always erred on the side of doing it too aggressively, like everything I did. And I think that was like the philosophy after was like, it's probably best to like get your velo early and then dotting stuff up later.
Right.
But I think it was always like, doing so many different sports as a kid, like doing high jump and then like gymnastics and like doing all these weird things to like kind of be athletic in like a bunch of different planes was super helpful. And then I think it's like finding the mix between being strong and flexible and stable. And it's like trying to come up with like the best. So a lot of times maybe you'll see like a really tall guy who's wound really tight and not mobile, but just like lifts his face off. It's like, that's probably not a good formula to like, It's a flexible sport. It's like being stable in space, like proprioceptive while being strong and flexible. It's like finding that. And like whatever you are, like I'm already super loose. Like I'm hypermobile and I'm relatively strong. So it was like working on my strength and then really getting down to like stability, like holding a spot. And it's like if I land, like holding it there. That was a thing I was like the worst at. And then there's some guys that are maybe hypermobile, not very, like it's just finding your formula and then like putting the right stuff into the right buckets. And I think for me, it was always like, when I was little, I think most baseball players do it, I just wanted to lift my face off. I just wanted to just get like yoked, and it just didn't, it wasn't helping me. It's like doing the lift for baseball as opposed to doing it to be a yoked person. You know, it's like,
he says he's not yoked. I mean,
but like that was like it's finding your weaknesses, working on those, and then also like maintaining your strengths, I guess, if that answers the question.
Yeah,
I don't know.
no, this is a big topic now because the youth sports is like, do you specialize in one sport or do you play everything? And it sounds like you use everything to figure out where you are now.
Yeah.
And that's something you're real passionate about.
For
sure. You did everything.
Yeah, I played every sport I could get my hands on growing up, and I feel like it's helped me. And I played every position in baseball as well. I just wanted to do whatever I could.
Yeah.
It's helped me with everything, my ability, my agility, my knowledge of sports and my abilities to have conversations. Like it's more than just the physical stuff. It allows you to, like travel does, it makes you see stuff that you're not used to seeing when you walk outside your front door.
Right.
Traveling the world gives you a whole new appreciation of what's out there, first of all, what other people are dealing with, and how good you've actually got it, and how he should appreciate what we're here for and how good our lives are.
Yeah, that's what's got to be wild for you, right? You say you're from LA and that's your spot. Now you're on a team that's, I mean, this is like a trend-setting team in baseball, right?
Yeah.
And now you have the ability to reach those guys and those young guys in LA and all that type of stuff. So the opportunity you're about to have, I'm sure you're so fired up for it. And you know the impact you can have on those guys.
Yeah, it's like a little bit of everything, you know? It's like added pressure and nerves, which is awesome. Because like at some point, like when I'm done with baseball, I'm gonna look back and be like, I don't have that anymore. Like it's like such a cool opportunity to go in and like, it's like there's all these expectations and stuff. And I think prior, like Pittsburgh and the Rays, that was never like a thing. It was kind of like, they're gonna be okay, and then we always would exceed expectations. It's nice to now be at a place where it's like, you better win. And it's like, I wanna know what that's like, and like kind of get thrown into that and just be like, how much more is this? Just like the whole mental roller coaster of a season, but mixed with that, just be like, all right, what's this gonna be like? Like gotta figure that all out.
Do you allow yourself to think about what could be next after baseball? Do you ever think about what you might want to do?
Sometimes, yeah, for
post-career?
sure. No, I don't like dive in super in depth, but I definitely, it's funny too, like every time, I think we talked about this in season, like when you're younger and you have like a couple bad starts, you're like, what else can I do? Like, what the fuck else can I do?
Start reevaluating.
Yeah, it's like, and you always get like worst case scenario too, even if you're like having a great season, I'll have like 4 bad starts and just be like,
Can I draw
like,
at least?
Like what else can, like maybe I gotta figure something else out. But I think about it a good amount, but I don't know what I would do. I think I would probably like for the first year or two to just go do whatever I want. And like, I'll probably get super bored, then figure it out from there.
Yeah.
Who were some of the young guys, or when you were a young guy in Pittsburgh, who were some of those veteran guys that kind of what you're doing now in LA were good role models for you?
David Freese was the man. I love that dude so much. He was the best. I liked watching AJ Burnett go about his business. I was always like terrified of him, so I just like stayed very far away. But I think he had like people like respected him, and he went about his business the right way. And like he was very like, when he was working, and he was like so locked in. And then he could kind of separate and like had the two different personality type of things.
That's so funny you say that.
Do you think you're like that?
I think the day I start, I'm a bit different for sure, but I'm not as much as most, I'd say. Like, I don't completely change.
It's not a conscious thing?
No, I kind of just am a little bit more like,
okay.
You know what I mean? Like a little bit more. But I don't want to get to the point where I'm like so like can't even talk to me. Like I don't want to change my person.
Don't touch my glove, man.
Yeah, like I know, I'm not like, I'm like the least superstitious. Not really like that.
So you bring up Burnett, dude. I hit my first homer off Burnett in New York. And I was like, this is badass, because I was a Marlin guy growing up.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if this dude wants to go get a beer with me, if this dude wants to kill me right now. I'm like,
exactly.
Oh my God. But he was, in the Marlin days too, he threw a couple no-hitters.
Yeah,
what a badass.
He smashed the truck window as it drove past home plate.
Oh, I remember more and more I look back on it, I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure that was on purpose.
And I think he also busted 2 rosin bags on his hip or something too.
That was, I think Mercer did that. They like opened up the rosin bags.
Right.
And then he's like, just like as a prank. It's hilarious.
Hilarious.
What is interesting about Glass, like, so you talked about his preparation days. So you're very methodical. I think there was a video that came out, Sterling did. For that took day 1, do this, day 2, do this, day 3. But whenever, and correct me if you disagree with me, but whenever you are locked in, even doing, you have your process that I've seen, you do your Stairmaster, you get your hips activated, but he's like locked in. And he has his headphones on, he's listening to like whatever he's listening to. It's like, you don't acknowledge people, you don't say hi to people, you just like, you're locked in. When you catch play, bullpen, like, and then you kind of like, okay, but it seems like when you're preparing in any way, your body, like you don't have time to like look around and talk to people in between. Am I mistaken?
No, that's definitely true. And I think that I don't even know if that's conscious either. I think because as a pitcher, you have a very finite amount of time to practice. You can't go into the cage and like take 400 swings. You can only throw so much. You don't want to like get hurt. So I think at the time that I get like my window, it's my window. Like I have the same routine, so I don't have to think about like, it's just like, try to eliminate as much of like unpredictability as possible, to where it's like I've already kind of been on like that hamster wheel so long that it's like so ingrained in me that like once I start, I just like get into that like shoot and jumper rhythm, you know? I'm trying to like lock into that feeling of like like I don't have to think about what I'm doing. I want to get into that rhythm, and then I want to go out to throw and like just make them as meaningful as I possibly can. And then when I'm done, try to separate from it as much as I can. Because I'm like, if I have a bad throwing program, I'm still like, God damn it, I'll think about it for like 45 minutes and just like, I think baseball players are obsessive like that. Most are like that, but like.
Well, you say this thing about pitching, which hit home for me as an older player, because I didn't have that, like, my obliques couldn't do 100 swings in the cage. So maybe instead of 100 or 200, I had, 50, but like each swing, I needed a purpose, and like I needed to make sure I wasn't wasting a swing. So like it makes you dial in that much more.
For sure.
And what's so cool too is like I played last year with the Cubs with Stroh and Marcus Stroman. Like you look at pitching and you look at the body types. You guys are completely different body types, but your body awareness of both you guys is so impressive. And that's the part to me which is amazing, because like you guys, it's not like you're trying to get extra velocity or throw harder, but like the injury prevention.
Yeah.
And I know guys are doing the shorter arm stroke and all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
For me, it's like the injury prevention and the routine you guys are on, you know your bodies, you know what you need. And I think that's where a lot of these guys are picking up on these routines, is to just injury prevent, not like to gain velocity or any type of stuff like that.
Right. Exactly. I think that's like the name of the game for sure. Because like most of our like baseball player brains, I don't know if it's like this in like life in general, but I feel like I meet so many OCD psychos in baseball. Like is it like chicken or the egg? Like are obsessive people, they gravitate towards baseball and are good, or does baseball just make you crazy? Like I don't know which one it is. But
I'll let you know in about a year. Year one into this.
Yeah. So I think people just are like more naturally be like, I want to do more, I want to do more, I want to do more. But you have to get to the point where it's like you're kind of just overcooking it at this point. Like find what you got to do and then stay healthy. That's like the two. You know what I mean? Yeah.
When I like just hearing you guys talk like this, it's just when I first came into the big leagues, I think my first strength handbook, everybody got the same one. first of all, and it was just a bunch of like chest, and I'm just like, oh my God, this can't be good for me. But just the way that it's evolved now into everybody's so individualized and so locked into their craft, and with all the information that comes with it, I just think you guys are going to have, hitters are going to have a tough time coming forward.
So yeah, you can already see it's like even in college and stuff, all those videos, like everyone's throwing like 105, like it's crazy.
It is. Yeah. How do you learn, all right, like recovery, this is dating us for like guys like, oh, I ice or I do the bands. Like, how do you learn what works best for you? Just trial and error as far as like, I've done everything?
So. It's like working with, it's like trusting enough people to like allow them into the routine. I guess it's like learning things, trial and error. Something works for you, it might not work for something else. And it's just like the consistent, like you do high school, college, pro ball, like trial and error, you figure it out. Everyone's got like their own formula and stuff. So I think it's a mix of like trusting people, allowing them to give you information, and then at the end of the day being like, this is what works for me. Like, you know yourself the best. It's like, I think it's just like anything, like you learn a new skill, you get better at it over time. Like early on, you make huge strides, and then over time, like years down the road, like a little improvement is like a big deal. And then like, you know what I mean? Like it's not as like up and down.
I feel like it's such a fine line to like, you have your routine and what's worked, and then like, there's like phases and phases, especially in the pitching world. Like these guys bring these like velo balls and they're doing the crazy, you know, all that type of stuff. If I can incorporate or make myself stronger in any type of way, I want to try that, but I don't know if it works for me or not. So like, how do you balance, like, no, this is my routine, but at the same time I want to improve? Is that like a trial and error type thing too, or is that just?
Yeah, I think so. It's like allowing yourself, if you want to try something new or you want to do, like give it a little bit of time, give yourself especially, and I think a lot of the big changes happen in the off season.
Yeah.
Like when you first start throwing, it's like, let's try this, and you'll give yourself like a month, and you'll be like, all right, that's not working. Or like you'll see a little bit of an improvement, or like, and then now with like the measurables and the data, you can be like, is it better? So like, if I'm learning something new and I'm like, it's not comfortable, but like, I think it could be. Like, 1 out of every 5 reps feels good.
Right.
But the thing I'm doing now, every 3 out of 5 feels good. But I'm throwing 2 miles per hour slower, and I'm more on the side of the ball. It's like, okay, I'll give this a little bit more time. Like, it depends how you learn and like what time you're willing to spend on it, I guess.
It also depends on where you're at. If you're throwing the ball great, you're not going to look for something new to do.
Right. Yeah.
If you're out there and you're scuffling for 3 weeks or
that's a good point.
6 outings in a row, you're like, what's out? Well, what can I give you the balls? Let me try something else.
It's true. You got.
People say too, like I throw hard and everything. They're like, so what are you gonna do when you don't throw hard anymore? And like, you need to learn how to pitch right now. I'm like, I'll figure that out when I don't throw hard. Why would I go up there and try to like, I can't do that right now.
I can't handle all this right now. Don't come at me with that.
Yeah.
Is there a difference? We talk about like data and of information. Is there a difference because Tampa and LA, you know, 2 of the top of getting analytical information that is beneficial for you as a player. Tampa just doesn't have the budget. LA has both. They got the information and the budget. But do you see anything yet that kind of jumps out or sticks out that we didn't have in Tampa, you do have in LA?
Tampa was so like what they put their money into, like they did it. Like it was all data and like that advanced stuff. So it's like they don't maybe spend a lot on players. They'll put a lot into like nutrition. They don't even have like a budget. They're like they take care of players really well. They have like a nice team flight. We stay in good hotels. They do a really good job of that stuff. And then they put a lot of money into like R&D. And like, I'm pretty sure the R&D team with the Rays was like bigger than it was like 45 people or something. It was just like a room of people just running numbers. And then they would just learn and like get all this data and compile it and figure out ways to like make guys good. And I don't even know how they do it, but they put their money into that as opposed to like maybe being like, okay, if we could spend maybe like 120 on a roster or like 150, they're like, well, why don't we just spend like 80 to 100? And then like the rate of return on, say if we put a few million into this, like we could get players to be so much better. Right. And I think they were the like early adapter, like they went all in a lot earlier than most people. Yeah. So I think that's the biggest thing. But the Dodgers and the Rays are very similar in that like Andrew, the GM of the Dodgers, was with the Rays. Mm-hmm. There's so many similarities. It's just they have a lot more money. And like everything, like they don't have to take away from one department to spend on another. They're just like, we'll just spend on that too, kind of thing, you know? Yeah. So it's like, it's insanely like professional and buttoned up.
We've always talked about that, and like everyone that's in baseball knew about Andrew, and now that he gets to spend money and be in a big market like LA, you're like, all right, it's game over for everybody else because this guy's brilliant. But even like in a day and age where the information is crazy, right? There's information everywhere. At the end of the day, like it's Glass and a rookie, just being a good teammate, step one of that. Like what does that look like? And like for you, like what are your like whether it's respect or whatever it is, but like what does that mean to you to be a good teammate?
I think it means like not like doing what you need to do while not like stepping on anyone else's, like not messing with anyone else's like routine. So I think like early in baseball, maybe like it was like you'd f with the rookies because it was like you're supposed to type of thing. And like, it was almost like make them feel uncomfortable because they could come up here and like take my job. I think it's like, doing whatever I possibly can to make that person better, while not like sacrificing my own. I'm trying to get better as well, but like doing what I can to help them, to make them the best possible player or teammate, show them the ways because they're on my team, and that my team, I want them to be good. It's like a whole collective, like you help me, I help you, let's all get together. And like the new age of it, which I really respected about the Rays, was like, I noticed the biggest difference was like the front office, the coaches, the players were all in it together. No, it wasn't like, don't fucking walk in the clubhouse. And like, I've been other places where it's like, these coaches can't come here, these rookies can't sit over there. And it's just like, what are you doing? Like, why is this so uncomfortable? Like, and I got to the Rays and it was like, let's just everyone, like we have, and I think some like older veteran players would hate this, but like we have so many people walk through the clubhouse, just like random R&D people or random this, random that. And it's like, I welcome that. Kind of a thing, as opposed to just being like, get the fuck out of my clubhouse type of thing.
We've been calling it the get off my couch.
You
don't got 3 years, why the fuck you sit on that couch?
And there's a difference, like if they're just coming in there and just like not helping, and it's like maybe go away, but if it gets everyone's in there to like help in some capacity, it's like bring it on, let's do it, and like being open to like hearing new things and everything like that.
You're getting old, buddy, because it's like, hey, you're a young star. What do I need to do now? I'm like, all right, this dude next to me and this dude next to me, I need the best out of him too.
Yeah, for sure.
And you're talking, and Sue is just smiling from ear to ear over there. Like, you gotta love that.
One of the things that a lot of people, I want to hear your take on this, as you're talking about all the physical preparation. What I don't think a lot of people know about you is your mental preparation.
Yeah.
We talk about that all the time. So you mentioned the stress, the nerves, and all this, and quieting your mind. Like, people don't realize that there are things you do. You always hear people say, hey, just hey, quiet your mind or be mentally tough. But you actually work on that. And so you actually do things. What do you do to work on your mind?
Oh, there's a lot of stuff, I guess. That's also evolved. I think like I was blessed physically from the jump, and I think the mental game was like so weak compared to my physical game, like early on in pro ball. Like I realized that too at like an early part of my career. Huh?
Did you get nipple rings?
Say it again?
Did you get nipple rings?
No. Damn, I should do that. Dude. I'm open to anything. You help me, I help you.
I see how good yours look.
Exactly.
Maybe I need to incorporate that in my game.
It's evolved over time, dude. Like we would have so many conversations on that, but I think the biggest thing that helped me the most was like sucking in Pittsburgh. That was the only thing that like really prepared me. And I think in another like big like adjustment was like stop trying to be perfect. Like I was my whole life, like the Western idea is like work harder, everything will be better. Like work harder, that is always the answer. More is more. And I think the older I got and like the more I realized like that's not true. Like you have to like do what you can, work on what you can, and then like give it a rest. Like you don't need to do mechanics at the grocery store. Like I was so obsessed with like trying to like, and I was like, this is good. Like I'm always trying to get better, like at the sacrifice of my free time or like, so I think it was just over time realizing like, if I fail at this, like I'm not gonna die. You know what I mean? I think it was just so afraid of like not doing good at baseball that like, that made me mentally unwell. That made me like, if I do bad one day, it's just like the end of the world. And it was like realizing how to just calm down and like, it's just a game. And then on like the actual tangible performance side, like a lot of like the mindfulness stuff, whatever you want to call it, that's helped me a lot. Like I'm a pretty squirrely guy, so I gotta find like ways in the morning to like try to like calm it all down and like quiet it and like focus on what I need to focus on and not like fucking squirrel brain so much.
I'm a squirrely guy too.
Dude, a lot of baseball players are squirrely brains, dude,
Did the clock mess you up? Because like the pitch clock for me as a hitter, it wasn't bad. I can get in the box, whatever. But pitchers, I know like there's times where you want to kind of decompress, take that deep breath, and mentally just lock back in. So now that everything's rushed, did that kind of mess you up a little bit, or you adjusted?
I adjusted pretty good to it. I always work so like when I get bad or when I'm not executing well, it's like I'm thinking too much in between pitches and I'm like taking too much time. So it kind of reinforced like stop. Or like just get back into your subconscious and like get the ball, throw the ball, get the ball, throw the ball. Like don't practice on the mound like you're competing. So that reinforced that. And it was early on, it was a little bit difficult. I had like 6 violations in like a month, I think. But over time, you just get used to it. Like subconsciously, I just kind of started to like, oh, okay, it's good. And then I just felt like I could get on like a roll a little bit better. Sometimes it's a little annoying when like you're searching out there and like the ball's not grippy and you have to get the rosin and like heat up the ball and like you only have a certain amount of time. But for the most part, it's an easy adjustment. Yeah. And like watching games, while I'm not starting, so much better. Like I hate those 4-hour games.
When we were just with Wrigley or in Chicago at Wrigley, and you're playing 2.5-hour games, you're working a 9 to 5. You're out of there by 4:30 every day. You're like, all right,
dude. Yeah,
I can get used to this. Yeah. I was telling Sue earlier. So I was like a roll guy. I got like a pinch hit in like the 8th inning, swung at the first pitch, naturally rolled over on it, but a 3-4 hole, got infield in, got a knock or whatever. 1 pitch, 1 swing, right back to the clubhouse. I'm like, I can get used to this.
Hell yeah.
Then we're home at 4:30. I'm like, all right, I can do this for about 4 or 5 more years.
There was some good, I think the rule changes were good. Like I was on that rules change committee too, and like I think anytime something changes, it's frustrating. But like I think like the way what they did, like the shift rule and stuff, it's a bit annoying because you're like, why would you tell me where to shift? But like overall for the game, it was good.
What do you think's next? Do you think they're going to go full automatic strike zone, or do you think they're going to go a little challenge system? What do you think?
I don't think for some reason, I don't think the challenge system is like widely accepted for whatever union thing. I think it's more about, I think the chances of it going full automated are higher than like the challenge system. The challenge system is super fun.
I love it.
It's so sick. Yeah. But I think every party has to agree. I don't know if they have like the automated system like buttoned up yet too. So
I mean, the challenge system would increase fights within your own locker room substantially, right? If this dude bro, if you're challenging 2 times and you get the wrong, and we get what, 5 total as a team, and I can't challenge because of that?
That's true.
I'm hot.
I didn't even think about that. That's a good point. Yeah.
Okay, so you just mentioned you're in the rules committee and in those meetings. What are those meetings?
Not anymore. I quit.
Yeah.
I was out. Too many meetings. I was done.
The meetings and all the players would come up to you, glass, everyone else.
Yeah, you're like, I don't want this smoke.
I'm cool with that, yeah. But it was like MLB side had 7 people who could vote, and then the players had like 4. So it was like, I'm gonna go into this and like see how that goes. Yeah. And then I think like they were like, the meetings themselves were cool. You could talk it out. People had their opinions heard, but I think at the end of the day, like the 4 to 7, like you can't really do anything. And I was like, I don't want to do this. It's like, can't really change anything. But it was, I don't know, it was a good thing overall.
Yeah, I like the new rule changes they've made. I don't know about the ones this year yet. I feel like spring is that time where everyone kind of learns and all that type of stuff. Yeah. But baseball in general has to get more entertaining, right? Yeah. Like we talked about the strikeout stuff and all that type of thing. So anything that's trying to like limit the downtime, make it more entertaining, the new bases now help.
Yeah.
I mean, you saw Ronald last year with the 40 and however many bases he stole. That's what we need.
Yeah, exactly. We need, I don't know if we're at the position where we need to have the fans catching balls yet, but I think anything that's more entertaining, we need it.
He's got a big start against the Savannah Bananas coming up here.
That's right.
Get your TikTok dances ready.
That's what I mean.
We were talking about that. He loves to dance.
I'm probably better at that than I am pitching right now. So I'm locked in. Yeah.
No, that's funny. As you were talking about, just because I remember you talking about your Pittsburgh days a lot, just the adversity that you faced. A lot of our mental strength or like our resilience is forged through adversity. It's not when things are going good, it's when like overcoming very difficult things. Are there any memorable minor league failures that you could remember where you look back, you're like, oh my gosh, like that one was, at the moment it was devastating, but you look back, you're like, actually, it sucked. I never want that again, but like that was actually good for me.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like every bad, terrible start, it's always like on the mountain. I'm like, this is the end of my life. Like when you're like 20 years old and like you give up like 7 runs and walk like so many people, and then you go into the clubhouse and you're just spiraling. You almost like do so bad you feel like you're dreaming. You ever that feeling where it's gone bad that you're like, when am I gonna wake up? Like I don't understand. Just such an over dramatic, like weird way to look at it, but like
those are the last 4 years of my career.
It's just like I don't know one specific moment, but like the starts where it's just like physically you're spiraling, mentally you're spiraling, and it like you just have no idea, and you get taken out of the game, and you sit there and you're like, what did I just do? That's when you start like, maybe I can be a mechanic, figure out something to do. But then like when I look back at those moments, those are like the best moments ever, because that's like once like you only have your worst moment once, and then it becomes another worst moment. Like when like you have like shit hits the fan and you do terrible and like you spiral on the mound or whatever it is. The next time you get to that spot, you're like, it's not as bad as that one time. It was like you're collecting all this like mound trauma or something. And then, like, so for me now, like if anything gets like a little heavy now, I'm like, this is not, like the way I felt when I was in the big leagues with Pittsburgh, like comparing it to now, it's just like, this is fine. Like no matter how bad it gets, it's like, it's not gonna get that bad.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So, and you think, does that just come with experience, with age?
I was just gonna ask you, that's kind of experience.
It seems like it. It seems like a lot of times people will be like, oh, so this guy needs like mental skills or something like that. And the reality is, he just needs to be older. He just needs to be experienced. He doesn't need a tool or a tactic or technique.
You know what a mental trip is for me too, is like, so like a young Glass in Pittsburgh, right? Say you're coming in that mop-up situation, like we said, well, I don't know why I'm facing you. And we're in Pittsburgh and there's 2,000 people there and you got all these this stuff racing through your mind. And then you fast forward to veteran like Glass in Tampa Bay, you're much more comfortable mentally, physically, and all that. And you're in Fenway in like front of 50,000 people, and you're probably in such a calmer space in that Fenway atmosphere than the Pittsburgh atmosphere. So that to me blows my mind, because mentally you can make something so much harder on yourself, so much easier on yourself. Yeah. But like at the end of the day, like you can really be in your way mentally and not perform the way you want to perform.
Yeah.
So that growth has got to be something where young players, old players, I guess is that experience? I don't know.
I have a cousin, he's a firefighter. I don't know if I told you this. So he's a firefighter, and I was asking him questions about fighting fires, like how hard that is and how difficult it is being in a house that is on fire. And he goes, well, we're obviously trained for that. He goes, but what's interesting, he goes, you just get used to it. And he goes, when I'm in my fire suit, he goes, let's say this, I'm in a fire suit and I put you in a fire suit. We both go into the fire. We're both in there wearing the same protective suits. He goes, you will be out of there way before I am. He goes, even though we're wearing the same suits, only because I can tolerate the heat. I've experienced it so much. I've been there. I've done that. I have so many hours in the heat. You have no experience, and so you're gonna panic, you can't take the heat. And I thought, it's just like you guys. Like the guys who are cool under pressure, it's like they can tolerate the discomfort. And it seems like that's kind of what you're saying. You're able to tolerate because you've been there, done that.
It's like that same little voice is still there, but you're just like, you don't like attach to it. You don't like identify with it. Sometimes when you're young on the mound, it's like this negative thought comes in, you're like, what is that? Get away. And like you look at it and you're like, whoa, instead of pitching, you're like, that's a weird thought. Like now, I just feel like now it's like, it's like that passes by. It's like, of course it's there, but like you don't like identify with it. You're like, I've already seen you before. You just like get down to like, I'm trying to execute. Like
that's what's so like unique about baseball is you get to that vulnerable stage at some point in time where you feel like it's rock bottom, like 0 for 30 or that bad outing. So then like you kind of go through that, you wake up the next day, everything's same as it was the day before, and you're like, oh, wasn't that bad?
Yeah,
you know what
exactly.
I mean? Like maybe there is light at the end of this tunnel.
Yeah, for sure.
But once you get to that like vulnerable stage, that's got to be like a big growth in that experimental progression, right?
Yeah, for sure.
What do you think? You're 49 years old or whatever.
Something that I was curious about as well. There was a time talking about going to the heat. So obviously, when you're rehabbing, Tommy John, we were talking about injuries for a while. And the rehab, when you're in rehab, you kind of feel distant from the team and so forth. But there was one time in the dugout, you came up to me and you're just like, man, I miss the stress of playing. Do you remember that? Like, I miss the fear and the nerves of like that kind of stress of getting out there. But what I want to ask about, and anyone who's been injured, just like talk about like bouncing back from Tommy John, like the long time, and because when you have all that time, the mind will play crazy tricks on you. You have all this time. What was that experience like for you?
Yeah, it was relatively rough, and I didn't have it as, I think like the most honest answer is like, it's much harder if you go through it when you don't have like a job security. You know what I mean? Like I think it was easier for me because I was in ARB. I knew I had guaranteed money that year and the following year, to where like, being perfectly honest, that made it a lot less stressful. I think it's harder when you're in the minor leagues and you like don't have a college degree and you're like in low A getting Tommy John. You're like, I don't know how this is gonna go. And then I have a big league facility to go and rehab at. I get to go in every day. I get to do all that stuff. So that made it easier. But I think the hardest part was like, you don't have the like competition and like measurement of baseball, and you just have all these like open free days and you're so bored. Like I go to the field, I liked going to the field and like doing the monotonous nonsense, and like it was the one like time of the day, so it was like structured and I got to do what I got to do, and I'd be done at like 2 and I'd go home and just be like, what do I do now? Like I don't know, like that was annoying. But
It's funny you say that because I had one Tommy John where I was with an organization and then one Tommy John when I had to rehab it myself.
Yeah.
And the thing that drove me for the second one was the fact that I was out of a job and I had nothing else but to try and get this thing right and see if there's anything left. So I was so militant with my rehab for that one.
Yeah.
And I would not let anything get in the way of that thing just because this was it. Like it was just desperation rather than comfort for me.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And there's so much more, like the guys that I play with that went through Tommy John, it seems like there's so much more of an appreciation for each outing after Tommy John. Like Danny Duffy was a longtime teammate of mine and he just pitched out here a couple days ago. It was the first time in like 600 and something days that he's been on a mound.
That's crazy.
Yeah, like just Tommy John and whatever it was, like going through that progression of the rehab and all that. So like the guys after, it's like they don't take any of that stuff for granted, like each outing, each pitch, and it's like, man, like it really just makes you put everything in perspective, because when you're not competing for a year and a half or something like that, it's hard to get back into it. And
yeah.
I don't know how you felt, but my first outing back, even if it was in the GCL, like I was emotional, man. Like getting back on the mound again after 11 months, 12 months, 13 months, it was like, I used to play these motivational videos in my ears before I'd go out and pitch, and I remember the first time welling up in the GCL clubhouse by myself, listen to this guy like, "Fuck fear, you're better than everyone," and I'm just like, "Let's go, man!" And I go running out for my first outing. But yeah, it's such a big and emotional roller coaster to come back.
Okay,
to
so
CJ.
the two different ends, like you're saying, though. So the guy that is, rehabbing in that big league with arbitration, coming back. But then at the end of the day, you come back the next year and you're still like, you go through the rehab, whatever, but then you come into the big league game and you're trying to stack small wins from yourself. I want to go 3 innings, I want to feel good. But at the end of the day, you're still trying to win a game.
Yeah, right.
So it's tough too, man, because like you think you're at ease and that is set off the field, but now you're competing again in front of 50,000 people and you're putting through some kind of juices that are flowing that you really can't control.
Yeah.
So that's got to be something to balance too. There's like, we always talk about there's everyone individually in this game, whether it's you're rookie, you're an arbitration, you're a free agent, everyone's individually battling something.
Right.
But it's so funny, man, because usually this guy's on the wrong end of it, but there's two unique perspectives. And the Tommy John one was straight. It was gold.
100%.
Yeah, it was.
We'd always talk, I guess, with Pirates. I think we did this with the Red Sox. You always have like big leaguers go and like speak to minor leaguers. I think, did you guys used to do that?
Yeah.
So there was a lot of times, COVID hit and like we just weren't able to do it, but you would, I'm imagining that we're gonna have a lot of like minor leaguers watch this and so forth. Like if you had the chance to talk to a group of minor leaguers, like if you did have that opportunity, like what would be your message today? What would you tell those guys?
Wake the fuck up, bro, and compete. Let's go. I don't care what the fuck you're spinning the ball at, guy. Just throw the ball over the plate.
That's a good. That actually is like very good advice. Yeah, like I feel like too, because that like generation of people is probably so computer data. Like every bullpen you throw now has a TrackMan. That actually probably is like, fuck that. Just go like compete. That is probably a huge message.
You can't fault these kids at the same way,
No,
because that's all they know coming up.
It probably helps a lot of people, and it
Right.
probably hinders a little bit of people. I think it's like kind of knowing yourself and realizing like what you need. But I think I don't know if I would go. I would be like, you guys got questions? Like I think I'd be more of like, I guess
it's much more Q&A form.
Yeah, I think it would just depend on each individual. Like I think it would be more like you need to find what works for you. Like don't be afraid to like listen to everyone and take in information and find what works for you. Don't be afraid to like say no to someone and like do it politely, but find a way, it's your career, find a way to be the best you can possibly be while running it, like as a cohesive group of like coaches and everything like that, but like it's your career. Find a way to dominate it as well as you can.
Did that attitude ever get you in trouble as a teenager growing up with mom and dad or teachers or?
Yeah, I think I was more like that just with baseball. And like, I'm a pretty stubborn human and especially with baseball, but at an early age, even in like the minor leagues in high school, like I'm so field oriented that like that trumped anything else. Like if a coach told me something and I knew it wasn't gonna work, I was good at being like, oh yeah, thank you. And I would just like do my thing.
Because he doesn't know what your body's doing.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So there was like every person has that situation where a coach comes up and goes like, try this. And you go, okay. And then you do exactly what you're doing and you throw a strike and you're like, see? And you're like, that was great. Like,
feel the difference? Yeah, the feel the difference coach.
Oh,
right?
I'm pitching coach. They did that to me this year.
It's just, weird little things. It's like,
Yeah, that's awesome. That's
yeah,
awesome.
it's cool, man, because now being the guy that's, the older guy that's not playing anymore, it's cool to see like a young Glass come in the league in Pittsburgh, and now you're in LA, and to even like take it a step further, you're in your hometown. So that young kid that does come up, you know what I mean? That is just information driven. You can still instill that teammate stuff and your whole team. Like there's so many people there where you can look at first base, you can look at the outfield, you can look at pitchers. There's so many people to idolize in that. So it's a unique opportunity you guys are in this year, man. And I hope you, and I know you will, but just don't take it for granted each and every day, man. And it's going to be something special for the sport of baseball.
Yeah.
And we're all locked in and ready to roll for you boys.
Appreciate it, dude. Yeah, I'm excited. Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.